Okay, welcome everyone. It has been a while since we've had an open mic. This summer was very busy, but I hope that you're all settling into, the coming of fall and just getting back into the swing of things. Thank you so much for your support, for your watching. We have 3 new poets tonight joining us. There might be a couple sneaking in later. And yeah, this is the Minneapolis Poetry Sanctuary open mic. It's an online community of poets, of creative writers, and yeah, we have another open mic coming up on October 30th. It is going to be like Halloween fall themed. So there can be, spooky short stories or poems, but it doesn't have to be. So feel free to sign up at, you can message me on the Minneapolis Poetry Sanctuary page, or you can find the email there as well. Okay, so Rick, I know you from the community, but I've never been able to have you on the open mic, so welcome.
Well, thank you for the warm welcome too. I'm 73 years old. I have retired for so many things in my life that just think of me as an old tired guy, and I'm a retread. I'll probably go back to work because I don't have enough retirement income. But my avocation is basically poet and promoter of poetry. And I do have a passion for it. It gets me out of bed in the morning. I want to read from a collection I brought with me today. I'm reading from my collection Down the Highway a piece. It's now about 7 years old. And when I was at Poetry in the Park this morning, I read 2 poems from this collection. And they just about brought me to tears because the emotional state I was in when I wrote them was right there waiting for me in the language of the poem. So I think I probably have picked some poems to read here this evening that maybe won't put me into tears. The first poem I'm going to read to you is just 1 page of verse. And the poem is called Light-Footed. Clear, cold northern nights provide a festival of sights. Aurora borealis, panoply of color, is seemingly suspended in celebration. Through the diffusion of spectator delight, a milk road band light seems near. A silver screen moon dwarfs all as it displays from night to night its tease of first more, then less. All is mere show, a spectral sleight of hand, compared to the darkness alone, which suggests nothing to the eye. For in the moment of obliteration by cloud, the observer becomes the glint, the substance untouched, though able to be wished upon. Each of us is starlight, traveling outward from our source, all of us having our being in our going, not our staying. The second poem is from earlier in the collection. And at the time this poem was written, I'd had quite a few folks in my life that were World War II veterans. And I kind of picked up on how they didn't like to really talk about their experiences in World War II. And in fact, my father-in-law said, if somebody talks about it, they probably weren't even there, which was kind of a caution about listening to their stories, except when the Band of Brothers came out and Saving Private Ryan, I think it kind of loosened things up a little bit because we realized that they had stories to tell and they probably needed to tell them. We certainly have learned the same with other wars like the Korean War and the Vietnam War and now the Iraq War and the Afghan War. We got way too much of this stuff. But in this poem, it's entitled Sergeant Schwartz's Turn at the Microphone. I think you're going to be kind of interested in something getting turned inside out in this poem. So this is a veteran whose friends call him Sergeant. And of course, he's been in civilian life for a great long time, so it's a little bit silly. But he's telling his story at the microphone. In so much of the life we're given, we do a dance with death as if it's the true love that's to win one in the end. While the Allied soldiers trudged onward across the Rhine and into Germany, many who would be war dead were yet alive. One, a collaborator shorn of her locks, tarred and feathered, yet crawled the face of a world gone mad. Another, at the end of his Reich, save for the moment in his hole, would soon spoon a silver-plated pistol and silence his dictator. Who wants to claim the laurel wreath which once crowned the victor's head? Just try to answer that question without another global war to fight. Meanwhile, in the byways, inns, and taverns of England, the talk of each place then was of war's end and a trite peace. A soldier, I'd say, knew for him, while survivors were chided raw, that of him more living was required. Moving on takes utmost valor. If one otherwise limited valor's use, futile would be a comrade's death. Not knowing who next was to falter, he knew someone yet must forfeit life, like the newbie who just died to take his place. I still ask, to whom should solace have fallen in the ruins of Berlin and Tokyo, if not in the camps in which lay the brutalized, the maimed, the live? To a near blind and palsied crone adrift at life's end, marooned, left with no family or friends, as her lips quivered in words of thanks, holding her skin withered, tendons bare on bone, rank in a harshness of unkind light. For we too, life, not peace, was dear. The poem ends in what I reference as the Mona Lisa, except it's a gender opposite situation. In the death camp, a woman has survived the death camp, but she's next to death. And a GI, Sergeant Schwartz, is recalling that he held her in his arms. So I just want to read that last stanza again. Holding her, skin withered, tendons bare on bone, rank in a harshness of unkind light. For we too, life, not peace, was dear. For a guy of my generation to want to take the Mona Lisa and turn it inside out and have a guy cradling a woman, I don't know if anyone can appreciate how much that meant to me, that nurturance and care and love can come from a man, and it can be very manly. And I think that was what was important to me in that poem, is that Sergeant Schwartz didn't give a rip that anyone maybe thought he was being a girly girl or something and cradling this woman in her extremity. That's not me talking, that's just Sergeant Schwartz at this point. The last poem I'll read you is actually from the prelude of the collection, and it's called A Chiffonier for the Taking. The word chiffonier came to me from my mother's first cousin, who happened to have married my dad's brother. Anytime this woman walked in my house as a child, there was a strange sense of conflict in the air. I didn't know or understand why my mother wanted nothing to do with this first cousin of hers. But it had turned out that her first cousin's mother had ended up with the family home. And there was a lot of hurt going on in the generations. The great grandmother came on the train to Fargo, North Dakota, and was abandoned by her European husband for a European wife. And she was left in Fargo with 4 children to raise and no real income. And she made it. But the house was never in her name. It was in the name of her husband, who had abandoned her in Fargo. Her oldest daughter corresponded with the father. And when the father left his estate, he left the house to his oldest daughter and in effect disinherited the other 3 children. And that's why my mother couldn't tolerate this cousin in her house, is there was this sense of dispossession. Of course, a lot of people can identify with the dispossessed. So the poem is called A Chiffonier for the Taking. This is 2 pages. I'll try to read it at a good clip. I may have to do just a word of explanation. The chiffonier was offered to me as a gift by my mother's first cousin, long years after my mom died. And I said to her, why would you give that to a male? That chiffonier is a gift for a female descendant. So it's kind of chippy, just like my mom had been with her cousin. But actually, I did begin to listen more closely at that point. Before thrown by my comment to one not to be admired, I'd had some desire to claim for myself a Matisse ancestry. Be that as it may, I lack the will to take the time and resources to know what's the claim or a chance of a heritage of shame or glory. People, I reason, are just people. Each generation its own need. I want in mind to wheel right on down the highway. If I slow up a bit, maybe I will nose around and see why Aunt Louisa claimed her roots and mine were wild rice. She once offered me her chiffonier. She said my great-grandfather, William, her grandfather, had handcrafted it. She said he was itinerant. Yes, that was it. And she said a sum account immigrant joiner, taking his Matisse wife from Quebec named Margot to Massachusetts, and then west to Wild Rice in Dakota, with 2 small children in tow and with wife pregnant with child 2, she bearing the 3rd child while in transit. The child born in transit named Naomi, Aunt Louisa's aunt, was my grandmother. Album shows Naomi grown with her mother, each with long tresses up in buns. William had long abandoned Margot and daughters 3, leaving behind this heirloom, a quality self-made chiffonier too. Not bothering or not daring to take it, he had taken up with a mistress, Louisa said, a European like his own and of his longing, the love of his life for whom he had charm. Margot's granddaughter, Louisa, offered it to me out of the house she had inherited. My jaw dropped, and I could feel my eyes along. I told her, no, it's an heirloom for a daughter. Louisa's child should lay claim to it, my kin, the one who wants it more than the others, the one that's willing to sacrifice her relations to her siblings, estranged anyhow, for it. Where had I learned to be so discreet? Think it, but do not bother to speak it. Plus, what's the point of mixed bloods feuding over a legacy we're not sure we should be claiming? Still a willow and stay a shudder. Hush and shush, urged grandmother Naomi. Sister Philomena said it best, and we abide. Little pitchers have big ears, don't you know? So that concludes my reading. The Margot, the poem, I think is somebody that I was reclaiming. And at a family reunion, my sisters told me I was full of bullshit, that we didn't have a grandmother, that was Matisse. And I said, well, we are what we are. And I just wanted to claim whatever heritage I had, regardless where the source would lead me. And I kind of like the story of Margot being abandoned in the cold north in Fargo, North Dakota, which is not the coldest place on earth. That's Grand Forks, North Dakota. And Margot, I think, deserves a lot of admiration for raising her children in dire circumstances. She didn't know, by the way, that her husband had the house titled in his name, and they tried to dispossess her of that home, and she wouldn't leave. And I think the Fargo police actually were sent there, and she sent them trucking. Apparently, she was a pretty tough cookie. But she had children of this man, and so she said, as long as there are children in this home, you're not touching this house. And then when her husband had died, probably former husband by then, the house went to the oldest daughter in terms of the title of the home, and that started the dispute between sisters, and then the dispute between cousins that I ran into as a child, just kind of listening for it and understanding there was discontent in the family. But thank you, Frances.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. I'm glad that you could make it tonight.
Well,
Thank you so much. And then next up we have Madeline Herrman. Welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name's Maddie. I only actually had one poem to read. I saw the email that there's 3 to 5, so I pulled up 2 others. So try to keep it quick. They're pretty short. I just wanted to, have an audience to kind of bounce this off of. So thank you for having me. This one doesn't have a name yet. It's True, actually. Doesn't matter. We'll see. My neighbor vacuums the sidewalk each day at 11:30 a.m. Is my volume good? Okay, good. My neighbor vacuums the sidewalk each day at 11:30 a.m. He said he likes it clean for the kids on bikes and rollerblades so they don't stumble on the walnut shells. There's the problem, I say, pointing to the bushy-tailed little ones up in the trees. But they do as they have always done. It is natural. The sidewalks came later. We say this must be clean for the kids on bikes and scooters, but the shells must return to the earth. Here and not here is beyond them, beneath them. He vacuums the dirt too. It'll always keep creeping back in, I say, pointing to the ants moving the soil. But that's the part I like. Every day a chance to return soil to soil, to make clear what is planned, to be a steward to the Rolling Rock. Yeah, so that's what that one. Oh, this is like a springtime poem that I wrote in spring. It's a good time to write springtime poems. So this is how to sit still. In times of stillness, the gears of speech grind on, wound on a spring. The humidity signals a lifting of the cold. There are trees, after all. The snow has watered them well, and their boughs are fit to burst at the moment warm sun. The weight is lighter, the light weightier, and the hum is growing, unrestrained, the sum of all these waking things. Even now, it is the time of life and talking out loud. And I have one final one. This one's called Commuter Rail. I just wrote it on a train. I think it was the light rail. Otherwise it might have been like somewhere in New York. This is Commuter Rail. A cloud peach out through the window, through a shimmer between compliments, between us, between the seats, between the late blue and a cloud lit up peach. It is neither here nor there that we will fall asleep in touch. Long before the night fades the glow to points in black, and the rocking laps us back into the breakneck lean of where am I? We will be sleeping. We will be dreaming. And those are the ones I got. Thank you so much. Ta-da.
Thank you so much, Maddie. It's just always such a pleasure to have new people, and sometimes you'll find that your work is similar to others, sometimes you'll find that it's different. And I love that. I love having all the different just themes and way of writing. And I think Maddie, you'll like River's poems that are coming up. She writes a lot about nature too, and well, you'll just see, she's amazing. So next up is Caroline. Welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, folks. It's nice to meet everybody virtually. Yeah, my name's Caroline. I live in St. Paul. I moved to the Twin Cities about 2 years ago now. Before that, I lived in Bulgaria for 4 years. And a lot of my writing is, kind of an effort to like make peace with those big transitions and understanding being from and coming from different places and settling in new places. I don't really think any of what I have tonight is really on that theme, I just realized. But I'm always really interested in things writing about place. So if you ever have any good recommendations or thoughts about poetry and place, I'm always really interested in that. So I have 3 poems to share with you. The first one we'll start with is called Salt in the Wound. Today, I'm a heartbeat away from the precipice, from unearthing this casket of remorse that forces my hands to become dirty when I've only just gotten them clean. How tender my own ghost is here, drifting from lighthouse to cobblestone, begging for penance in the name of that which I have lain my life down for and called devotion. But the sea, I will let it rock me to sleep, and I will cast no stones from its indomitable shore. I will drink lungfuls of its sweet saline air, and for once, even if just until the next sunset, call myself home. Right, and poem number 2 is called Delphinium, and this is after and with a line from Laura Kazishki. To have outlasted every other October and found myself here at the fingertips of unfettered bliss, abruptly a compass with a holy destination after years of rudderless invocation. It is as if I have tossed a postcard of the ocean into the ocean. Home, swallowed by a facsimile of home, swallowed by the hands that pull the edges to the seams. Laced to my kneecaps, I was for a time the perfect garment. How I wept when handed a goodbye. Suddenly a crushed petal beneath an unassuming heel. How I longed to see this empty space and name it with dignity. Not a grave, but a garden. A soft place where something beautiful might grow. And our third poem I just finished a couple days ago, still iffy on the title, but I think it fits for tonight. So this one is called Envoy with Cinnamon. It pains me to say that I feel like I've lost slightly less than when I came here. The name in the back of my throat I could never swallow, now just a pill and several big gulps. My autumn anchor rusty with sorrow, it's time for you to flee again. This has always been your season, shroud of garnet leaves and amber sunset, crackling electricity from our fingers. How you love to find reasons to keep running. Staccato feet on broken pavement, panting the rhythm of a ballad to ease the long way home. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I actually met her at an event at the Next Chapter bookstore, and she came up to me
Yeah.
afterwards after my reading and was interested in joining. So it's always been really cool to me how people find their way here. So up next, we have my friend River Urke. Welcome. Good to see you.
You too. Was it last weekend we were at Chapter Books? Is that when you guys met? That's cool.
It was, and I saw you read there as well. So it's
Oh.
extra special for me that you're here tonight because I get to see you again.
Oh, thank you, dear. Thank you. Well, I don't know. I live in River Falls, Wisconsin, so I'm a little east than everybody, but I grew up in Minnesota. Lived in Stillwater for a really long time. So, and I am a poet of place for this area. You talk about place. Which one talked about place? One of you did. And yeah, we had to do a bunch about place for this position thing. And then I am the host and founder of Up Close, Meet the Poet Behind the Verse. It's a literary program that happens once a month on Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of the month. But and you can look up Close Poets on YouTube and or Facebook, and you can find it. So tonight I just posted a little chat book. We're talking a little thing. It's like a 5x8 little. I don't know. I like chat books, and it's called Songs of Silence. I'm having a online chat book launch party and open mic on the 29th this month. But anyways, and so this was kind of a fall theme. I have one fall poem in here. I gotta take my glasses off so I can actually see. Every poem in here is touched by silence, I say. There's some kind of silence that's a part of it. This one is called Autumn Dance. A gentle wind lifts the last leaves in a free fall golden dance, drifting down around, dressing me in autumn. I sit alone, another Saturday night, silently longing, feeling the empty space beside, tears begin to flow. I think of Pima Chodron in the winter long ago, when I learned about loneliness from a Buddhist perspective. A moment of clarity crossed my path, opening a concept of lonely beyond Western thought perspective, a notion of thought that simply slipped away one day. I recall Pima's wise words as I contemplate need and want. A slight smile spreads as I remember why I'm alone. I'm not your average girl. I need a man stronger than your average Joe. Okay, so I'm gonna open it up and just see what we get. Ha ha ha. This is what I put in here for laughter. And you'll get a kick out of this. It's called Son of Silence. Back in the 80s, I kissed the son of silence, tongue-tied that boy in a matter of seconds and left him speechless, standing by his locker. Okay, I'll do one more and then can I read one that's different from this? Okay. This one's called The Decision of Self. Along the edge of a mighty river, a woman stands alone, heart in hand, weeping beneath a willow. She treads rapids of indecision, a hue of emotions and thoughts rush against her skin, drowning her in pain and robbing her of voice. Silently, she calls out to Hera. Leaning against the ancient tree, she prays for the guidance to know, the strength to decide which way the twisted old branch points to go. She listens to her inner voice, leaving the river behind. A torn heart walks her path alone. So, and that's last one I have. They're very different than most of my stuff. I wrote it quite a while ago, but it's I could say beforehand that my mother was a psych nurse for like 20 years. She's an LPN that worked at a hospital on a psych floor, and so some of it's from stories, and yeah, it's called Invisible in Central Park. Two souls cross paths in Central Park, invisible to the world. Let their stories begin. Under a bridge, a man leans over, gagging. From the unbearable stench rising from his own filth and grime, lost in the mucks of thought, he doesn't notice the woman running full speed towards him, or that she rounds the corner and looks over the edge, blind to the world around. She cringes at her thoughts, as her thoughts try to swallow her whole in this day of ungodly heat. She moves to run, but is stopped in mid-step by the familiar scent of the long-awaited rains. She watches the shadows creep closer as the sky cracks open in downpour, waking her every sense. Catching a glimpse of red, she sees the man begin to dance, turning in circles, flinging clothes off with every spin. He stands naked, arms raised to the rain, unaware she peers down, mesmerized by his freedom. Is he insane? Is she? Or is it this world of labels pushing their limitations all wrapped in falsities of a make-believe order with unreachable expectations? She smiles at these thoughts, at the naked man below. As the rain slows to a sprinkle, he sees her for the first time and smiles back. Their eyes lock in an exchange of unspoken acceptance, lingering long after she walks away with a skip to her step, and he pulls out a hidden bag with clean clothes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, River. Rick, I was gonna have you share quickly, you were talking about an event that you were, I believe, hosting or co-hosting today, weren't you?
Yes,
Can you, because that's an event that is continuous, right? Like it'll happen again?
yes. The first full week of October, there'll be an event announcement for Black Coffee Poets. The version Black Coffee Poets this summer was actually called Poetry in the Park as a promotion. And we've had our 3 summer months for that event. October, mid-month, the event will be indoors. I'm still scoping out places. It's hard to find an indoor place with acoustics, that type of thing. Businesses are sometimes a plus and a minus. If they're willing to host us or permit us to, have the use of the space, they would expect the poets that are coming to these events to spend money there. So part of it is having relations with businesses. We've had a history of doing that, so it's like most likely that we'd be willing to do it again. But like you mentioned, somebody mentioned the Highland Park St. Paul Public Library. To me, that would be a much better arena if in fact there was a room where like 30 people could be for a poetry reading, because the acoustics are probably perfect, just in terms of ideal conditions. So I haven't really nailed down the indoor place yet for that. And so you'll hear the event announcements put out on Bird's Nest Poetry, which people can join. I think we're up to like 300 members at this point on that. And then Bird's Nest itself does Bird's Nest Open Mic, which is a Zoom program, just like yours, Francis. That's always the last Sunday of the month. And those event announcements are on Bird's Nest Poetry as well.
Well, thank
So-
you all so much. And if you can, because our chat won't transfer here to Facebook, but on the actual Facebook video, if you could include those details in the comments too, because it really is
Okay.
about building the community and helping people be aware of the various, events and whatever is available. So thank you everyone
Okay.
so much for attending tonight. I appreciate it. And I just loved hearing your poetry. So stay tuned. The next open mic is in October. You can email me or with any questions or to sign up. So good night, everyone.
Thank you, Francis.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you, everybody, so much. I enjoyed listening to your work. Thank you.